All right, good morning. Last night, I decided I would go ahead and do a systems check on this thing. It had oil pressure, it had fuel pressure, so I went ahead and made sure that the coil and the distributor was wired up and turned it over to see if I could get it to just light at all, which it did, sort of. So at that point, I figured, all right, if it's going to light off once, then I should be able to get it to idle. So I wrestled around with it quite a bit and could not get it to actually start. It's acting like only one cylinder is getting fire. So I suspect that I might have the distributor 180 degrees out. I'm going to check that now. I went ahead and made some marks on the balancer, the pulley. Hopefully all that's in the right place. If that's not, then that'll be a problem. But you can see the number one rockers through the oil fill in the valve cover there. Where are we? Right there. So I, with the flashlight, looked in there and you can see that the intake port comes over here and the exhaust port lines up there. So I watched the number one open and close and then kept rotating it until all of that lined up. So right now I've got it at 12 degrees for top dead center. And unfortunately with the intake manifold on there, getting the cap off the distributor is pretty tricky, but that's pretty much what needs to happen next. I can get to that one pretty easy. So I'm going to pop the cap off and let's see if I can get some light down there for you. This one is supposed to be cylinder number one. You can even see where I marked the one there. And I traced these around yesterday. Wait, why is that going to 4? No, it's not. So this one is number 1, as you can see by the mark. And that goes over here and twists around and goes all the way up to 1. I did check the firing order yesterday. Oh man, that thing is tight, like it's rotated all kinds of goofy. But we can deal with that later. So I'll double check the firing order one more time, then turn it over. I've got some footage of it that I took last night, some really short clips of it just kind of spin, and then it just barks one cylinder. And then when I was messing with the timing, it was actually barking the cylinder so hard that it was like the timing was super advanced and it would act like it was, hydrolocking. But I pulled the plugs. I pulled a couple of different plugs a few different times. You can smell a little bit of gas on them, but they're not wet. It's definitely not hydrolocking or anything. So I'm pretty sure I've either got just not enough gas getting in there, which, 3 pumps on this should be plenty, or I've got it sparking at the wrong time. So I'm going to investigate all that. Looks like I've got 3 and 4 crossed somehow. And I think that might have happened because they're numbered down here. So let me pull this one off. Yeah, so that came off of number 3 because number 4 is still hooked up. So this is 3. And if you look down here, it's numbered 3. But if you look over here at the text, they all have a 4. So I guess that messed with me. So this one is 3, and it's supposed to go 1, 3, 4, 2. So let's see if I've got 2 in the right place. Looks like I've got 2 in the right place, because I know 1's in the right place. So I've had 3 and 4 crossed down here on the distributor. Okay, that is definitely 4. All right, I'm gonna use both hands here and get that corrected. So it's still doing the same thing. Turns, it kind of fires like just on one cylinder, and then it acts like it's just not got any gas. I had my trusty old 1990s era Craftsman timing light flashing on there, and I am not seeing the marks whatsoever. So the distributor might be 180 degrees out. I'm going to turn it over again, watching the intake rocker to get it at top dead center. I'm going to pop that cap off, see what that looks like. And hopefully it is just 180 out. Wouldn't expect that to happen on such a simple engine. Hopefully it's not a case of the balancer being out, but it's very possible. I've never really taken one of these pulleys off of the hub, but maybe it's possible that there's no keyway between the pulley and the hub, and somebody took the pulley off and rotated it 30 degrees or 60 degrees. And so I've got it timed 30 degrees retarded or something, who knows. All right, swung it around, watched the intake valve open and close, and then watched the piston come all the way up. You can see it right there. You can even check the depth. So we are at top dead center, and check out our mark. It's like right on it. So we're actually 2 degrees before top dead center. So now it's time to pop the cap off and see where the rotor is pointing. And that's pretty close to cylinder number 1. So I'm going to try to get a pointer or a mark somewhere so I can set this thing right up. Maybe the timing was way too advanced. I'll back this thing up to where that is at 12 degrees advanced, and then do my best to line that dead on. So maybe it is a fuel issue. Odd. All right, so apparently I just had the timing retarded by 20, 30 degrees. And now I've got an idling Iron Duke and a 62 CJ-3B, and man, is this thing quiet. And clean. I mean, it's got a little bit of white smoke, but there's really nothing. All right, I guess I need to give it a cooling system and a gas pedal. I got this guy from Speedway Motors. It's steel. It kind of, fits the whole deal with the Jeep. Unfortunately, from what I'm seeing, is to get the pedal where I want it, basically the hinge needs to be right where the old hole was, so I'm probably going to have to cut this, like right along there, weld a patch, and then hook that on. But I didn't want to get into that until I actually knew that the thing ran. Sounds like it could use even more timing. I don't have a vacuum gauge. I've got that and that just taped up. But anyway, man, that's a good deal. Let's get the cooling system on and then start wrestling with the gas pedal. I made this bracket for the throttle cable. It's 14 gauge, but it's, a little still kind of flimsy with how narrow that is, but it should be just fine. And I put a return bend over there. Can you see it? Yeah, for the hand throttle cable to bolt in there, and I don't really know how I'm going to attach that to the big throttle over here yet. But I guess it'll be probably down on one of the lower holes. There's like 2 rows of holes, so maybe I'll put it down on that one or over here. Probably over there would be a good place. So yeah, all of that's got to happen. But I don't necessarily need this to test drive it. I probably do need to figure out what to do about these to make it charge. But to do that, I've got to get it idling a little more solid. All right, now that I've got that out of the way, I got the grill back on rough. I'll get the radiator on there. I've got to go up to the store and get another heater hose because I'm out of heater hose. So, and if I don't do that, I'll have to loop the intake to the water pump. But anyway, I just wanted to review real quick what I had to do to this 88S10 ECU controlled distributor to get it to run. So basically, I did a little hack here. So this is if you're looking at the coil. There's two connectors, something like this. I don't have the old coil anymore. I'm pretty sure I threw it away. But there's two connectors like this, so you have to kind of figure out what's A, B, and C, and D. A is your tack out, which you could use if you have a tack. I'm using a carb cheater, so I hooked that to the carb cheater. I haven't even turned the carb cheater app on to see if it's picking up RPM, but it should. B is your 12 volts from the ignition switch. I actually have it going through a relay to ensure that there's no resistive drop through the 60-year-old ignition switch or through a resistor wire. C is what usually goes to the ECU. I'm not really sure how this works when it's connected to the ECU. The ECU triggers it to fire, but then I guess whenever it's in start, the ECU just grounds it. And so that's why this works. There's a pin on the HEI module called the B pin. Right there, the B pin. And so I just took this guy when it was installed in the distributor and my ohm meter and traced out where that B pin goes. And it went basically to here. So by grounding that, you're essentially turning the distributor into a locked out distributor with no advance whatsoever. So if I wanted to advance it at some point in time, what I would have to do is figure out a way to take a square wave that's advanced and then switch this from grounded during crank to the advanced, and then it would idle. Or even connect it to a window switch so that the window switch above, like, say, 1500 RPM would then jump to 36 degrees timing. But anyway, that's how I got this to run. I put marks on the pulley that you can't see because it's not at top dead center. But that's your 0, that's your 12. So I marked the 0, advanced it, marked 12 with just a pencil, and then advanced it, marked 24 with a pencil, and advanced it, and then marked 36 with a paint marker. So I've got 0 marked, which, you know, if you put it there, is 12. And then I've got 36 marked, which would be right there and would put the 24 there. So I'm going to try to just run it at 36 base all the time. 36 base with no advance. I'm going to try that, see how it runs, and see if it gets hot or anything. And figure out what timing I can just tool around with to kind of run all the bearings in and everything and change the oil. And then later on down the road, I'll decide if I need to do something about figuring out an RPM-based advance. I don't really like the idea of just having a hard switch where it jumps from, like, say, 12 to 36. A jump from 24 to 36 probably wouldn't be that bad. And who knows, maybe that jump from 12 to 36 wouldn't be a big deal either. But I would rather it ramp in over a few hundred RPMs, at least. But anyway, I'm babbling. Just wanted to go over how to hack an ECU-controlled S10 Iron Duke distributor to run as just a locked-out distributor with no computer.